I think Islam is the most misunderstood religion in the world, not just by non-Muslims, but by Muslims as well. Many non-Muslims' information about Islam is based on what they see on television and in the movies. And many Muslims are born to this religion without anyone really explaining it to them. And unfortunately, their actions and their behavior reflects their lack of understanding. And finally, you have people who twist the verses of the Quran in order to spread their hate. The end result is a lot of confused people and a lot of confusion on what Islam really teaches. I get so many emails from viewers asking me why I became Muslim. So instead of answering it via email, I decided to make a video. So for the season finale, I'm going to take a break from my normal comical view of explaining things with the hope of clearing up some of the confusion with this video. I grew up here in America, and like most Americans, I knew very little, if anything, about Islam. And the very few Muslims that I did come across, they didn't practice. So since their actions were just like everyone else's, I really had no interest in asking what they believed in. You see, I wasn't really raised with any religion, and honestly, I really didn't care much about any of them. Coming from a science background, you have to convince me intellectually if you want me to change my ways. Otherwise, anyone can make up a religion and say it's from God. Each time someone tried to sell me on following their religion, I was given vague answers whenever I asked for evidence. If you want me to give up my desires in this world, then you better come up with something more than this religion is the truth because this book says it's the truth. Prove to me that this book is perfect, just like the Creator, and then I'll follow it. Otherwise, if the book even has one error, it proves it's been written or edited by man. So different people from different religions used to knock on my door. And once the discussions got down to evidence, they had no answers. And that wasn't going to fly with me. And then I discovered Islam. And shortly after, I became Muslim. So why Islam? You see, I became Muslim before 9/11, before all this propaganda. Today, if you watch TV long enough, you'll believe that this religion is a religion of fanatics, where actions are not based on reason or rationality. But that's not true, but rather it's the exact opposite. When I started studying Islam, I found it very comprehensive, very practical. In fact, when it comes to discussing the existence of the Creator, Islam teaches you to think and reflect, to observe the world around you. Because when you start investigating, you realize how complex things are. And through our human experience, we realize that complex things just don't come out of nowhere. If you and I were walking down my street and we saw the complex buildings and the technology within them, you would never believe me if I told you this all came together by itself. You see, even though you don't see the engineers and the builders who put this all together, that doesn't mean that they don't exist. Just the evidence that you see something put behind, you know for sure someone had to build it. Not just that, but you get an idea of the intelligence of the Creator just by checking out His creation. The amazing thing is that all these man-made structures are rather simple when you compare it to something as complex as a living organism, like a fly. If the entire world got together to build something as complex as a fly and then put life into it, they couldn't do it. And that's just a fly. The point is that we don't see order spontaneously arising out of chaos, but rather our human experience tells us that when we see something working by precise mechanisms, that someone had to put it together. And that someone cannot be a human being. Because we know human beings are imperfect and limited, while the Creator of all things is perfect and infinite. So therefore he can't be an idol or a cow or even a human being. Because how can a Creator who is infinite be killed by His creation? How can He die? He can't. So if the Creator of all things is perfect, then His book can only be perfect. So when I started investigating and studying different books, the only book that I came to find perfect, without error, was the Quran. No other book has been memorized cover to cover, verse by verse, in order, by millions of people. That itself is amazing. Have you ever tried memorizing a book cover to cover? Now imagine millions of people doing it. It's not even uncommon to find a person as young as 10 years old to do it. And remember, 85% of the Muslims are not even Arab. Now linguistically, there's no book that compares to it. Scientifically, there's so many verses on scientific knowledge in the Quran that I don't have time to explain in this short video. All I can tell you, 1400 years ago, it was impossible for anyone to have this accurate information. Especially when some of these things have just been discovered in this past century. And the Quran challenges man to write a book like it if he is in doubt that this book is actually from the Creator. To prove that this book cannot be written by a human being. So many have tried. All of them have failed. And many of them ended up becoming Muslims. Amazing. Now keep in mind, the meaning of the Quran translated to English is not the Quran, since the Quran is only in Arabic. Any translation is only a mere attempt to translate it. These days you see people trying to take verses of the Quran, twisting them in order to fool the people. But in reality they're only fooling themselves. Yes, there's going to be people who are going to be like sheep and they won't think. But I've come across many open-minded people that once you come with a valid argument, they'll listen. They'll think. They'll reflect. Which is one of the reasons I made this video. I'm not here to offend anyone, to attack anyone, or to attack any religions.